Hello, and welcome back to Ready, Steady, Play. I'm Michael Dennis, and I'm joined today by Andy Brazier, who you might recognize as a staunch liberal.
That is the true Hitler.
And we're playing Plague Incorporated today, which is a new game that's just been kickstarted, I guess, based on the popular app and video game. This is basically inverse pandemic. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. As far as I understand.
So instead of
Kill the
cooperating,
world, not save the world.
yep. It's instead of saving people, we're trying to kill people. We are the diseases now, and also instead of cooperating, we're competing. I think a big difference you'll notice if you're familiar with the app is that instead of in the app you're trying to outrun the cure, so you're sort of developing a disease, trying to avoid being cured and kill everyone before they can finish developing the cure. Or mutate to stay ahead of it. In the board game, we are competing to score the most points by killing the most people better and more efficiently than our opponent. And I don't know, there's endgame bonuses. I was disappointed to see there aren't any for killing people in amusing fashions, but there you go. Apparently, I guess this is probably a bit more serious than I'm taking it.
It is a little morbid. The die literally has blood specks on it. And it's called the death die.
We roll that to find out when countries die. So yeah, we're sort of we're gonna take this a bit lighthearted, but it could be taken as a very serious game. There's nothing tongue in cheek really about the board. Some of the event cards, so there's 3 decks of cards, and some of the event cards, which are sort of special things that might happen. Some are very serious, some are a bit more humorous. I remember in the app, they used to have scrolling news headlines that would come up as the game progressed, and these were always very funny and very tongue-in-cheek. So there was a very sort of black humor to the app, and I imagine that comes out in the event cards in this game, but it does seem a bit less present.
I'm going to try and lighten it up by calling my bacteria Barry.
Barry.
I am the Barry bacteria.
Are you named after Barry Smith from Face Check?
No, I am named after someone I know at work who he recently turned 50. His name's obviously Barry, and he's always a good laugh. So, to you, Barry.
All right. Well, I need to name my virus, so I'm gonna do a throwback. Actually, I think to when I was playing Pandemic Legacy with Leanne. We had to name our diseases. And we called one Toots Maltus, which just means death by farting. So I'm Toots Maltus the virus. And yeah, so we've set up the game to go already. Andy's going to be a bacteria. I'm going to be a virus. We'll explain the difference between those in a minute. But why don't you tell us what a bacteria is, Andy?
I'm not a biologist. I just have a little code on, a little description
on my. Here.
On my.
You'd be really good at this.
Yeah, you would. Although you'd probably get annoyed with probably some of the inconsistencies or the.
I suspect this isn't as realistic as he'd like.
So anyway, pathogenic bacteria are a major cause of human death and disease. Typically, a few micrometers in length, they are extremely adaptable and can spread rapidly.
Mine says, Toots Maltus is a virus. Viruses are infectious agents around 150 nanometers in length. Only able to replicate inside the living cells of other organisms, their genetic makeup encourages unpredictable mutations. Sounds fun.
So, go bacteria.
Go virus.
Go banana.
So we've got the world board here, and what's going to happen is we've got a deck of countries. We've also been dealt a starting country. You can tell the starting countries because they've got little red symbols on them. And we're going to flip over our starting countries. We don't know where they are yet, but they'll be in one of these 6 continents. Should we do it now?
Yeah, let's find out where we are.
Okay. Woo! I'm in South Africa.
I'm in Argentina.
Oh, I'm going to go here so I can wave at you across the pond.
Hey!
Hey, buddy.
There we go. Barry and Toots Mortis have now entered the world. Welcome.
So far, they are completely benign, but that's all about to change. And we've got a sort of a marketplace of countries here, and each turn we'll have an opportunity to take one of these countries and put it on the board. And we don't automatically infect it. We then have to move there, but this gives us sort of some strategic agency to place in countries, because ultimately what we're trying to do is wipe the countries out, which gives us DNA points, and also prevents our opponent from getting them. Now, ideally, you'll infect the same countries as your opponent to sort of steal away some of their points. But ultimately, you want to spread as much as possible and try and infect as many countries as possible. The game will, in fact, the country deck is also the determiner of the length of the game, because the game will end when that country pile is exhausted. So we've got how do we go about infecting countries and killing them? Well, we've got these boards here, and these sort of represent these are like our disease control centers, and we've got 3 sort of starting abilities. We've both got this ability called Outbreak. That's the same, and then I've got Genetic Switch and Mutation because I'm a virus, and Andy has.
I've got the rather boringly named, although I'm sure there is something to do with bacteria here. Bonus DNA.
Bonus DNA. But these are all actually in evolution spaces. So we've got these traits, and these traits have got sort of hidden things underneath. That and they're things like they're symptoms basically. You might have sneezing, you might have paranoia, hallucinations, hemorrhaging.
This is an example.
I'm going to try to sneak a peek at whatever Andy's got there.
That's right.
But you'll put these down, and you can actually cover up your abilities that are on the board, which means you'll lose those abilities, but maybe gain something more important or more powerful. And at any time, you can say, I don't want this anymore, and get rid of it, and replace it with something else. Except the virus actually has a little advantage with this genetic switch ability, which lets me sort of switch things out for a discounted cost, but I can't do it if I cover up genetic switch, so there's a payoff. But I'm getting ahead of myself. These traits, sort of, they boil down to giving us bonuses. And the bonuses they give us are either to infectivity, which allows us to spread more quickly, to lethality, which improves our chances of wiping out a country once it's fully infected, which means all of these little black slots here, which represent cities, are occupied.
They're even named. I'm, for example, starting in Buenos Aires, or how do you actually pronounce it?
Buenos Aires.
I don't know.
And I'm starting in Cape Town. And I'll be spreading to Johannesburg and Durban. Also Soweto and Pretoria. Durban. Yes. Oh, look, there's little stats here. Look.
Yeah, there is.
This is for South Africa. So we've got
53 million people, effectively.
Yeah, it's
and a GDP of 350 billion. Compared to Argentina's 43 million people and a GDP of 537 billion.
Wow, so you've got fewer people and make more money.
I do indeed.
Okay. So, as I was saying, the traits improve infectivity and lethality. They also give you the ability to travel as in an airborne or waterborne capacity, which means that you can actually travel between countries using the airport or the docks, which you can see are actually indicated on the cards here. Some cards have no symbol there, which means you can't do that. And this is important when you're spreading the disease, which I'll get to when I talk about the turn summary in a bit. But they also allow you to adapt to different climates. You've got a hot and a cold climate, as well as a temperate climate. So these are both temperate climates. You can see here that Sweden's a cold climate, so it's got snowflakes on the cities. And you'll need special traits to spread to those more easily. You can use your outbreak ability at any time to spread to any city you want on the board.
Not spread.
Sorry, move to any city on the board. So you actually have to move your cubes to that, or one of your disease cubes to that city, that country. But it's not very economical. It's not an efficient way to spread the disease. So you don't want to do that unless you really need to. And one of the reasons you might want to do that is if you're too efficient at killing. You might find that you occupy an entire country and wipe it out, and that actually takes all of your disease tokens off the board. So then you have to take a heavy points penalty. You lose 7 points, and you have to sort of renew yourself on the board. So that's not very good. You want to try and sort of balance spreading with lethality. Which is a bit different to the app, because in the app there was sort of this whole thing where there would be a period at the beginning where the humans hadn't discovered you yet. You could kind of sort of like stealthily infect a certain amount of people without actually killing anyone, and you'd be mistaken for the common cold. This doesn't really have that in the same way. This is more about sort of balancing what you're doing against what your opponent's doing. It really is sort of purely about who can kill the most humans the quickest. So I've also got this mutation ability, which is sort of a bonus ability of the virus, which means that I can actually, if you don't like your traits, you can mulligan at any time and sort of redraw your entire hand, again as part of the turn order, which I'll talk about in a minute. But you can't draw traits any other way. And if you do mulligan, you have to discard your whole hand and then draw 5 new traits. So if you've used a few already, then that's no big deal. I mean, you can get 5 back if you've only got 3 in hand. However, what I can do with the mutation is I can draw a trait off the top of the deck, and I can play it for 3 less than its cost. However, and if I don't want to play it, I can just put it straight into my hand. So I can actually sort of draw cards and just assemble a huge hand of traits that I can start swapping in and out as my ever-evolving crazy virus, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool with bacteria. I have to burn a country to redo my hand.
That's true. So and the way we pay for all these traits and these upgrades is via DNA, and DNA is also victory points. So you're sort of facing this difficult decision about, do I spend my victory points to build the traits, because the ones you have on your player board at the end of the game count towards your final score. So whatever's on the board at the end, you get to put that back into your final scoring pool. However, any that you swap out during the course of the game are lost. So you sort of have to be careful about when to upgrade and what you're going to upgrade to. So that's going to be, I guess that's going to be a difficult decision.
First time playthrough, I have no idea. I suppose as a virus, you have more limited blank evolution spaces.
It's true.
But I can't see I can see you wanting to switch things out eventually.
If I ever find myself in a situation where I want to use Outbreak, I might actually have to get rid of something that's on there already. And it does say switch a trait card, so I suppose if I use genetic switch, I can't just change my spaces around. Damn it. And so the way the turn structure works is that at the beginning of the turn, we've got this DNA phase where we both it's very turn-based. So I'll take a full turn, Andy will take a full turn, I'll take a full turn. It's not got sort of swapping of actions or simultaneous play or anything like that. And whoever has their turn will take a DNA, which just means you gain 1 DNA point for each country you control, which is where you have the majority occupancy. Then you've got a country phase where you can draw a country card or discard it and draw new trait cards. Now, when you draw a country card, you either take one of the 3 from the marketplace or one from the top of the deck. It's worth noting that because the deck controls the length of the game, you do have to draw the card, and if you draw it from the marketplace, replace it from the deck, or if you draw it from the top of the deck, you just take it and you actually discard it. You don't not draw one. So that makes sure there's a set number of rounds. Because the number of country cards we've put into the game actually is determined by the number of players. In this case, 2. And the game's from 1 to 4.
Yeah, and I think with 2 it was 24 cards. Yeah, 24 cards in the country deck.
So that's 24 turns.
Yeah, 12 each.
12 each. And then you move on to the evolution step, which is where you pay your DNA points to put down traits from your hand that might help you to spread around. They might be things like cold resistance or airborne, or they might be +2 infectivity or lethality, and they've all got symptoms names, so they sort of help add flavor to what you're creating.
The more traits you have as well, the more expensive the card. So a simple one, which is just infection, such as coughing, maybe, would just cost maybe 2 points or so, whereas something a bit more, such as sneezing, which is both infectious and airborne, might cost, I think we saw earlier, it was about 7-8 points.
Yeah, and I think they go up to something like 28 or 30. So they get pretty, there's a huge range of potency within the symptoms, which explains why you might want to be sort of swapping things out or etc. as the game progresses. And the best way to get DNA points is by killing countries. But you will get sort of 1 a turn as well. And then, so after you've evolved, you've then gone to the infection stage. And what that is you put down these infection tokens from your board here onto the countries, and you get a number of infection tokens equal to your infectivity, which is starting at 2. And you've got to put them into countries that are connected to you. And connected means that you are in either the same continent, or you're connected by these at the top here. So, for example, airports. If you're in a country with an airport and you're airborne, you're connected to all other countries with airports. If you're in one with a port and you're waterborne, you're connected to all other ones with ports, which is pretty cool. So again, it's just about climate and it's just about being connected. You're automatically connected to all the ones in the same country as you. And then you can throw down your number of tokens onto all the different countries that you're connected to, that you have the climate resistance for. Or you can use your outbreak to move one if you haven't covered it up with a trade. Now, there was a question I was going to ask you, Andy. Is this a limited pool here?
Yes.
So if we run out of these, we're in trouble.
Yeah. I can't actually remember what happens.
Because I guess the premise is to be sort of killing countries, right? And there could be a situation where you've spread so much disease out across the board you don't actually have enough to occupy a country fully. And then you're at the mercy of your opponent who has to come and finish off the last known survivors for you.
If you run out of tokens or can't place all your tokens, then you move on to the next phase.
Right. So then you just sit there waiting for your opponent to come kill countries.
I assume you'd have to slowly use your outbreak to either move things to certain countries, or I assume maybe it even becomes almost impossible to not be in a situation where you do something.
Yeah. By the sounds of it, just don't put yourself in that position. It seems bad. Try and avoid it.
It would end up being a very boring game. You just have to go through all the countries and then eventually you get to the end game and go, well, I can't move. Okay, game over. That was fun.
And the final phase of your turn is death. And that's when, if you fully control a country, you roll the death die. Oh. And what you're looking for is a number equal to or less than your lethality. So we start with lethality 1, which means we can only kill a country at the start by rolling a 1. As the lethality increases, our chances go up, which is pretty good, I think. As this is a race, you want your infectivity and your lethality to be as high as possible, unlike in the video game where there's more of a sort of a nuance to managing that. This is just about being as deadly as possible. And
there is endgame bonuses based on how many you kill, how many countries you kill.
Exactly. So the game ends when the country deck runs out and we enter something called sudden death. And sudden death is triggered the minute someone can't place any more of their infection tokens on the board. So
sudden death. Once sudden death is entered, sudden death enters when you've done your country when you've cleared your country deck. If you are unable to move, so that's either placing tokens or being able to roll the death die, or if a player has been eradicated, so
no tokens left on the board.
No tokens left on the board. The game ends and you calculate your final scores.
Right. And there are game bonuses at the end, so you get 4 points for having the most disease left on the board at the end. You also get 6 points for being for each continent. So there's 6 continents. So whoever killed the most countries in each continent gets 6 bonus points for that. And finally, ultimate wipeout plus 7 points to the person who killed the country with the most cities in it. So, for example, if Andy and I if he killed Argentina and I killed South Africa, I would win that because I have 5 cities to his 4. But I'm sure that we get bigger ones later on. We saw some countries that look pretty hard to conquer.
Cool. Yeah.
So with that, Andy's going to go first. The player who goes first is the one who last washed their hands. So Andy gets to go
Mike
first.
Is hoping it's me because I most recently went to the toilet.
Yeah, that's true. I hope actually that might have changed, but Andy's going to go first for this gameplay, which means that I get to start with 1 DNA point. We'll see if that's significant. All right, cool. So Barry the bacteria, it's time to
go
break out.
Break out.